First off, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to those apostles and elders from Great Millstone who teach and rule well. A lot of respect to you brothers out there on the highways and byways preaching His truth around the four corners of the earth. And salutations to the hopeful elected week that you guys may be sealed soon with that. This is your brother Dewar Bar from the branch of GMS here in Chicago. Coming right back at you with a little lesson. And, I just happened to go past this video and we kind of spoke upon it a little bit today at camp. The Bishop Arala was talking about how when you got so-called white people who hang around a lot of so-called black people, always around good friends. And he was like 9 times out of 10, chances are they could be an Israelite. Well, it just so happens I ran into this video. And as you see, it says, if you look at the words, it says, your so-called white husband is a groom at another black wedding. Then it got some emojis. And it says, her husband got a lot of vibes. And I'm going to shut up here and play it. It's only a few minutes. And I want to get the Copyright Act of 1976. I'm not using this for no monetary gain. I'm not using this to get any type of finance. I'm just using this for educational and teaching purposes only. The Copyright Act of 1976 allows me to use this for educational and teaching purposes. So with that, I'm going to sit up here and let it play, and it just lets you know how, we don't go by no so-called white and black narrative. We go by the spirit, point blank, period. We've been spread it amongst the nations, so we're going to look like the other nations, point blank, period. And people got to put that in their goddamn mind and quit being so fucking simple. But with that, I'm going to let this play and then I'm going to grab a few scriptures. So I'm gonna end it there. I mean, I guess I could just. But either way it goes, I was just in this video was really based on the so-called white guy that was dancing in the line, but you could see how he was moving, how he was grooving, you could sit up here and see the vibes he was getting out, and chances are, and I don't know, but chances are he's an Israelite, man. Now for whatever tribe it is, I don't know. But either way it goes, you can sit up here and see by how he moves, how he grooves, the flavor. You can sit up here and tell that, man, he might be an Israelite. So, and like we always sit up here and tell people, we don't go by so-called black, so-called white. We don't go by those narratives, black-white narratives. We don't go by that. We go by the spirit, point blank, period, by the spirit. And this understanding this word, when you look at Salakia, when you look at Justin Timberlake, when you look at Bruce Lee, when you look at the way they say things, the way they move, the way they groove, the way they sing, Eminem, Keanu Reeves, and these just to name a few, these to us are speckled birds, at least to me. I'm not gonna say every brother, but when I look at these men, I look at them as being speckled birds, Just because they look Chinese, just because they look so-called white, just because they look, a certain way, doesn't mean that that's who they are. So with that being said, man, let me grab a few scriptures. And like I said before, one of the scriptures I've been quoting quite a bit is Romans. What is that? Romans chapter 8 and verse 15 or 16, I believe. It's Romans chapter 8 and verse 16. It says, the Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh. And if children, then heirs, and heirs of Yahweh, and joint heirs with Yahweh Shah Mashiach. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. But the main point is the Spirit itself bear witness that with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh. And that spirit, man, first and foremost that spirit of understanding this word, point blank period. Understanding this truth. But that spirit also goes in the way we move, the way we grew, how we think, the way we act. See, Esau is nothing but wicked. But when you look at Jake always has a sense of righteousness in him. Even though our people are wicked, they still have a sense of righteousness in them. Point blank period. And not only that, just the way we act, how we move, how we groove, how we are around each other. That so-called white guy, how you around brothers, how you sitting up there dancing, how you grooving, how you moving. He feel comfortable. That spirit itself also makes us look at him and think, hey man, that he could be a Israelite. When you comfortable around a group of people, when you comfortable like that, man, it says a lot. So that's the spirit that we go by. We don't go by if you look like a so-called white man. We don't go by if you look like a so-called black man. Because there's a lot of chocolate-covered Edomites out here. You got to understand that the so-called white man raped a lot of our women and had children. I got one more scripture, and this another scripture that sit up here and knocks that out too. This is Revelation 7 and 9. It says, after this I beheld and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. And what is this saying? When it says of all nations, that's going to be people who look like the other nations. That's not saying the nations itself. That's saying people who look like the other nations. When you look at Tiger Woods, yeah, he looks like a so-called black, but you could also see a little bit of the Asian in them, and that's the thing. People need to come out of that mind frame that, and people should automatically, it's kind of funny that the way this world is, man, people believe in any narrative that Esau put out there instead of taking the time to think, coming up with a thought themselves. You'll believe anything that anyone tells you, man, and that's the problem. Matter of fact, I might get that. I think it's in Job. I'll get it in a moment because I think it's in Job. But like I said before, that's nations and kindreds and people in tongues, people who speak different languages. Just because you speak a certain language doesn't necessarily make. If I speak Russian, don't make me a Russian. That's just like I live in America. I was born in this land. That don't make me American. I'm an Israelite, point blank, period. That's my nationality. That's who I am. Point blank, period. And nothing could take that away. It's just like, hey, if you're an Edomite, you're an Edomite. If you're a Moabite, which is a so-called Chinese person, you're a Moabite. If you're an Ammonite, a so-called Japanese person, you're an Ammonite. And an Edomite is a so-called white person, just in case you want to know. But either way it goes, man, the spirit bear witness that who we are, man. And then when it says all nations and all kindreds and all people and all tongues, that's talking about all nations. That means people who look like the other nations. Yeah, people got to get in their mind. There was a scripture I was trying to come up with, and it's in Job. I want to say this. Man, I might have to look it up. People been sitting up here believing these lies and sitting up here can't even think for themselves. Hold on, I think it's in Job. I'm going to have to look on Google and give me 1 second. There you go. Yeah, it was Job 12 and 16. People get deceived by this goddamn devil, man. And sit up here and believe everything these damn devils say. And don't sit up here and take the time out to read nothing. He say you black. He say you white. Y'all sit up here and take the time out to sit up here and think about it, not even understanding that we scattered. Not understanding anything. Not understanding lineage. You know, here it is. Y'all got this false narrative of mixed races when there's no such thing as a mixed race. You are what your father is. And that's pursuant, you know what, I'll get that too because I don't want to just leave. But this is Job 16. This is Job 12 and 16. It says, with him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. So that means the motherfucking that's deceiving yourself. You know, the Lord got y'all in the trick bag because y'all falling for these narratives, the stupidity, the lies. You know, you so-called black, you're not black. You so-called African-American, you're not African-American. You so-called Mexican or Puerto Rican, that's not what you are. You know, these motherfuckers have told you and gave you a name of what you are, and that's not who you are. You being deceived by this fool, you know. And if the Lord ain't with you, you're going to continually be deceived by this motherfucking devil. You know, point blank period. I just forgot what I was looking for. God damn it. Another brain cramp. I had something in my mind and I was going to go look for it, and now I sit up here. This is Job, the deceiving deceiver here, and I just sit up here was thinking about something. Damn. I ain't going to try to sit up here and think about it. You know, I lost track of what I was thinking about. It was another scripture I was going to look for, and now I can't even think about what it is. But either way it goes, man, hey, look, the Spirit bearing witness, man, that we the children of the Most High, man. Point blank period. You know, it ain't because you look black. It ain't because you look a certain way. It's the Spirit in you. It's the Spirit in you. And especially if you understand His truth. That's one of the main things. If you understand His truth, you know, because even it says that all Israel and not Israel, because you got a lot of people who don't follow this truth. You got a lot of people who follow the wicked right now, the wicked Esau, Edom. You know, they want to follow everything else. You know, and they're going to be destroyed, but they're going to come back right in the kingdom. But with that, man, this was just something through the Spirit, man. I like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakakwadash, double honors to those apostles and elders from Great Millstone who teach and rule well. A lot of respect to you brothers out there on the highways and byways, preaching His truth around the four corners of the earth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that you guys may be sealed soon. And with that, I always say stay prayed up, brothers. Pray for each other because we're almost up out of here. So with that, I like to say Kwam Yasharella and a Baba Ball and Anyaha B'Thamalakia. Shalom.